All right, well, we're going to get started, wrap up on time, and appreciate you all joining us today. My name is Ryan Moore. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Fraud Protection Network. The name you're seeing on my screen and that you have likely heard to come join us today is Resident Link. Resident Link is a product, and Fraud Protection Network is the company that's bringing this product or this service to market. I think it's also important for us to just take a minute and have a quick kind of reason why we're here type of discussion. So this particular webinar series has been hosted for clients of Yardi and or Experian, more specifically Experian Rent Bureau. And the reason for the calls is that we've all been working to become compliant with the Senate bill and 1157 more specifically, which is obviously since been codified in California Civil Code. And so we're all seeking to become compliant with that. Yardi and Experian have worked together for some time. We, Fraud Protection Network, and our Resident Link product have been working with those two companies as well for going on 5 years now. But the Yardi Experian relationship is very robust, and it has included the ability to report rental data for some time. With the rollout of this law, with the deadline that's starting tomorrow, there were some changes made to the Yardi Experian Rent Bureau integration that allowed for, instead of, it used to be kind of a toggle on, toggle off with regards to the rental reporting. So if you wanted the information in your rental ledger to actually flow into Experian Rent Bureau, it was kind of an all on, all off. Yardi was able to bring that down to not only the property specific level, but further down to the individual unit level. That's a fantastic achievement. Unfortunately, the law is very specific that it has to be done on a one-to-one with individuals, not at the unit level. So, this came up, unfortunately, not too awful long ago, about a week and a half ago. We, Fraud Protection Network and our Resident Link product, have been working to satisfy this requirement with our other clients that we'd had for some of them for years. And so in discussions with Yardi and Rent Bureau, it was suggested that maybe Resident Link could be a solution that is quickly adopted, interrupts very little of your other processes, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but also can help you become compliant with the law itself. So that's the genesis of why we're here today, why we're having this discussion. We do again work with both Yardi and Experian Rent Bureau. Anything you've done with them to date is going to be beneficial in anything we might do together in the future. So hopefully that's good news for any of you that have spent some time working on those relationships, especially with regards to the Dana Furnisher relationship with Experian by way of Experian Rent Bureau. That's going to be fundamental to what we do. So what specifically do we do? So Resident Link it was released, like I said, about 5 years ago, and it was designed as a resident amenity. And more specifically, it was designed as a resident amenity that, as you can see on your screen, was designed to build and protect consumer credit. The building was the rental reporting piece, and the protection was a combination of identity theft protection services and credit monitoring. We had two flavors of the product in the market, which was our Resident Link with our Rapid Pro and our Rapid Pro Plus. The only difference between them, they both had rental reporting, but the Pro version of the identity theft protection included all the identity theft protection, but single bureau Experian credit monitoring services. The Pro Plus was just the next evolution or the step up of that, which is, again, the rental reporting, but now it also included a tri-bureau credit monitoring platform. So that's how Resident Link has existed in the marketplace for since its inception. It was designed, obviously, to build and protect the consumer's credit, but as a resident amenity, it was also designed to generate ancillary revenue back to the property management company that was promoting the service. Something that was very unique about the way Resident Link rolled out is, unlike other amenities that are only applicable while the person is in the property, even though the rental reporting may not continue indefinitely, the consumer could continue the identity theft protection at the discounted rate even after they moved out of the property. So it was this very unique resident amenity that provided a significant benefit to the resident while also generating ancillary revenue back to the property and revenue that could potentially continue beyond the resident remaining a tenant within your community. So again, that's how Resident Link had existed all the way up until the Senate bill rolled out, and the transition from a nice to have to a have to have, specifically regarding rental reporting, was born. So ResLink has been around. We've been doing all these same things for years. The only real thing that we changed with regards to the Senate bill was that we created a third product. So we had the two products that had identity theft protection and rental reporting, but we created a third product that was now just rental reporting without the ID theft protection. Why didn't we do that before? Well, there's a few reasons why we didn't do it before, but to be perfectly frank, we didn't do it before because working with Experian, which is always our primary bureau, we had two very fundamental things that we both believed in. One, that the rental reporting was on time, and two, it was unclear whether or not you could charge for the rental reporting itself. So on time or positive only reporting, and again, the ambiguity around the ability to charge. And we took a position, Experian and Fraud Protection Network, by way of our Resident Link product, both took a position that said we weren't going to charge for the rental reporting as a standalone product. We are not a not-for-profit, so if we can't generate revenue off something, it didn't make sense for us to have the product. Well, the evolution of the Senate bill required some sort of reporting mechanism, and we ended up originally working on a property management company paid version. In other words, our client, and we have one client doing this, chose to actually pay for the rental reporting on behalf of the resident. So it becomes a free to the resident service, but it did generate a cost to the property management company. Not too awful long ago, in light of everything that's been going on, and the Senate bill itself makes it very clear that rental reporting is, charging for rental reporting is allowable under the under this new law. Both FPN and Experian finally felt comfortable, at least in California, and that's the one caveat, at least in California, that we can have rental reporting as a standalone product and directly charge the resident for that product. So Resident Link now exists in two versions, both of which have three products: our Plus, our Pro, and rental reporting. But the two flavors or iterations is one is the property management company pays for the reporting. The other is the tenant pays for the reporting. We originally launched the property management paid out of necessity. All of our clients, since we've had the offer for the tenant to pay for it, for the resident to pay for it, have chosen the resident pay model. I don't imagine that's going to be any different for anybody on the phone, but I just wanted to kind of walk through the kind of how we got here with Resident Link. So when we talk about the Senate bill specifically, and how Resident Link can assist with your compliance with the Senate bill, what we're really looking at is well, the two most immediate deadlines. So July 1, tomorrow, the ability to have residents signing new leases, I guess future residents, about to be residents, signing new leases to be presented with the opportunity to have their rent reported. There's three forms that were postulated. The one is essentially at the lease. There's the lease addendum, which kind of regardless of when you choose to opt in, you would have the lease addendum piece. And then there's the ongoing form, or the notification to existing residents. The initial ask, though, to the July 1 deadline, is about new people moving into the community. So anybody signing a new lease has got to be presented with the opportunity, the option to opt in or opt out of rental reporting. Now, the law, there's many aspects of it that are very poorly written. Quick little aside, we believe wholeheartedly in what the law seeks to do. Unfortunately, we nor the Bureau seem to have been consulted in its rollout, and it is not written to really satisfy what is actually taking place in most of the properties, but what legislators believed might be taking place in some of the properties. So there's a lot of things in the bill that became law that have to do with sorry, actually our law firm is calling right now. There's a lot of things in the bill that have to do with a kind of a manual interaction with the consumer. For most of our clients, it's going to say unfortunately, but it's actually fortunately for most of our clients, most of the leasing activity actually takes place online. This is another place where Resident Link excels because that's generally where we've been presented to the consumer in the past. So again, Resident Link is this amenity managed by a third party, us, fraud protection network, and it's being offered to the resident as an opt-in type of service. Before I move any further, I just want to very quickly give kind of address some of the semantics that'll come up throughout the call. So the bill refers to opting in and opting out. As a subscription-based direct-to-consumer product, we've always had people adding and removing our service, but that's been enrollment or subscribing, signing up maybe, and then also canceling or terminating the service. So those terms are all going to be kind of used interchangeably because when they voluntarily opt in, they're going to be enrolling. When they cancel or terminate, they're going to be opting out. Now, there is a version of opting out that is possible under the law where they can opt out without having previously opted in. That's not something we've ever had to deal with because somebody only wants to cancel our service if they've enrolled. But there is a opportunity, or there needs to be an opportunity for the resident to opt out, even if they've never opted in. It's a bit of a weird provision within the bill itself. And it comes with a penalty actually back to the consumer, which is a 6-month waiting period. If they've opted out, they have to wait 6 months before they can opt back in. Now, although we'll be able to help manage that, we're only going to be able to help manage that for clients that are also engaging us for direct mail. I know I'm talking about an online platform. Direct mail may seem like it just came out of left field, but just know that we'll get back to that. So again, we have some, and you're going to have things in place to account for a tenant physically walking into a leasing office, physically signing a lease. You need to present it with some information. That's where some of the forms come into play. But since most of these interactions are happening online, and again, you're here today because of mostly Yardi and Experian Yardi relationships, let's go ahead and take a look at how we get this information to the consumers via those existing tools that live within the Yardi software system. So we've got to make this presentation to the consumer at the point the lease is signed. Well, one of the areas there where Resident Link already has a preset template within the Yardi ecosystem, more specifically the RentCafe system. The very first place that the tenant is going to be exposed to it is actually at the step at lease. So with regards to meeting the letter of the law and actually making this presentation to the consumer at the point they're signing the lease, electronically, this is basically as close as you're going to get. So this is something that's going to be messaged to the consumer during the point at which they're signing the lease. Now, the messaging on the screen is probably fuzzy because it's a screenshot anyways. It's more meant as a demonstration, but it's our historical language that didn't actually address the Senate bill. But the language that you've worked with your firm on creating can go directly into this online form, and you can actually make your disclosure right here during the step at lease. Now, there is one thing that is going to be nearly impossible to comply with. We've worked mostly with KTS on some of this information by way of our clients, but the ability to comply with one provision, which is actually where you hand them, I believe the word hand is actually in the rule, where you hand them a self-addressed stamped envelope. It's very difficult to do in an online leasing process. So we have been working towards something referred to in the legal world as substantial compliance. But the kind of the catch, if you will, is that how are you, I'm in Florida, if you're in California, if I'm going to rent a property from you and sign an online lease, unless you're willing to put your leasing agent on the plane and fly them over here and physically hand deliver it to me, it's not necessarily possible to meet that one provision. So we're very, try to be very transparent in these discussions and bring as much information to you as possible so that you understand where Resident Link is a benefit, where there are still things that are a little bit unknown. But again, this is about as close as you can possibly come by offering this information in an online transaction at the point of lease. Other places where the resident interacts by way of the RentCafe platform is in the resident portal. We have preset integrations where it's going to potentially pop up the information as they log in for the first time. It'll pop up so you can message them there. Even after that pop-up, you can create announcements within the page where the information can be presented. So this gives you the opportunity to have multiple interactions. And one of the things that the law says is, yes, you need to make the offer at the point that the lease is signed, but that remains available for them to opt in, opt out during the entire period of their tenancy. So whether they keep the form and take it home, think about it, and a month later bring the form back, or they see it inside of their resident portal and want to, click to enroll, the opportunity for them to opt in, opt out throughout their entire tenancy is something that needs to be considered. So again, a couple of areas where we exist. Now, there are other areas where we exist within the RentCafe platform, and also other third parties that we work with or have worked with. Payment processors, Demuso, Paylease come to mind. Other third party like moving services like the Updater platform. So we have a card within the Updater. We have all kinds of things that already exist, and really anywhere where you can customize messaging and have a call to action that is controlled with a link, a URL, a website address, you can actually implement Resident Link, and the implementation can be very quickly. Oftentimes, a lot of our clients either have the access themselves, or they have a representative, let's say within the Yardi team, or if you're using another third party for payment processing or whatever, that they can actually help implement this for you. During the onboarding process, you'll get a list of all the URLs that can go all the different places, and it takes everybody back to your company's specific landing page. So we've kind of really quickly gone through what is Resident Link, well, why are we here, what is Resident Link, and then the first step is obviously getting the information to the resident. So you may have to, well, you will have to consider how paper form interactions are going to happen with the resident, but also these online interactions which dominate the leasing process for all of our clients are also something that needs to be considered, and the RentCafe integrations that exist are a great way to do that. If you don't have RentCafe, you're going to have a little bit more challenge because you just don't have as many interactions that are online already. But you're likely still accounting for the online lease somewhere. Clients that are even using tools like DocuSign have added their form within the DocuSign process. So we've seen lots of different things that folks have done to comply. And to that end, actually, when you're still needing to use a paper form or some other type of form integration that is that's not an electronic means, excuse me, one of the things that we've done for our clients, and I know that some of these are small, so bear with me, you don't need to read it, but what you'll notice is an actual QR code that we've been putting out there for our clients. And what that allows for is, even if the consumer has to get this information in a paper format or as a form set within their DocuSign, that we can still, with some limited technology, QR codes and short codes, give them an opportunity to still enroll themselves quickly and easily without jumping through a bunch of extra hoops or obstacles. So now that we've presented this information to them, whether it's via a paper form, some sort of page within your DocuSign process, or hopefully something within RentCafe, what does the consumer experience actually look like from there? So from there, the consumer is actually going to, remember, all of those call to actions are attached to a link or a URL. That's going to bring the customer to your company's landing page. Now, on your landing page, we try to keep the information as clean and simple as possible, but for all of our clients, they generally have, this is one of the semantics things I was going to hit earlier, which I forgot to, which is we're categorizing properties as two types: retail and affordable. There may be other ways that you refer to it or think about it or nuanced within that, but as far as our system is concerned, it's either retail or it's affordable. Standard, non-standard, but retail and affordable is what we're going with. And Resident Link for our current clients, especially, and most all of the new clients we brought on, it is being deployed across their entire portfolio. In the properties that are considered retail or not affordable outside of California, they are getting the traditional Resident Link that had the two flavors, which was rent reporting and identity theft protection, rent reporting and identity theft protection, all three bureaus. So single bureau, all three bureaus. They're getting just those two options. The affordables are the only ones getting this third rental reporting only option. Now, the way we differentiate between the two starts at the very beginning. Again, when we have those links, if you put a property specific information, you're going to want to link to your affordable version of the site. If you're at a retail platform, you'll link to the retail version of the site. It might sound complicated. It's actually really, really, really simple. And we have a bunch of safeguards in place so that even if your consumer were to come they lived in affordable and they came and somehow got to the retail page, we're still going to actually control the messaging that they receive at that point. And so I'll show you actually in real time, and with demos, these things sometimes don't work. So fingers crossed. But so our affordable marker is type equals AFF. This is embedded in that code. The consumer doesn't have to see that lengthy code. They're going to get a button or a call to action or something like that, QR code, for example. And when that change happens, if you watch my screen, what you'll notice is as soon as the page reloads, the price actually changed. Right? There's a different price for a different product at the affordables than there is at the retail. We'll talk a little bit more about the benefit of that in just a second, but I do want to identify that's one area where there is going to be some effort on your part. It's very minimal effort, but on a monthly basis, you'll need to supply to us, to Fraud Protection Network, Resident Link, a list of your properties. And within that property list, it's going to need to identify which ones are affordable. The reason why that's important is regardless of which landing page the consumer lands at, they're going to end up going through an enrollment or a sign-up process. We want to make absolutely certain that consumers that live in an affordable are are offered the products and services that should be made available to them, and conversely, the retails are offered the ones that should be available to them. So our sign-up process is designed to be super simple. It's 3 steps, not very complicated, little suggestion boxes along the way should you have any questions or confusion. Another part of the platform that's nice is it's fully responsive. So on a mobile site, it's going to adjust itself. It's going to fit very well on a phone or a tablet or a website. So that's all a part of what happens for all of our clients' landing page. And then what's very unique is as the clients go through, or as the consumer rather, goes through the sign up process, and I'm going to cheat real quick. Sorry about that. I've been a little bit busy and didn't have this completely preloaded. So what we do here is as the client comes through, and we'll just say Miami, Florida, as they start to type their zip code, what you'll notice is this community name popped up. Well, the community name here is going to be something we ingest from you. It's a very simple CSV file. If we have the opportunity to pull it out of your software, we will. But even with our Yardi integration, the property list, what is and what isn't affordable, we're still asking our clients to send us a CSV file just as a fail-safe. But what you'll notice is that it actually brings up the list of properties that are in that zip code. So as you continue to type, it'll actually narrow down the list of properties. So this allows us to now essentially control exactly what products are being presented to the consumer just by that locational aspect. And again, that locational feature is going to be key because we don't want to inadvertently offer something to a resident on an affordable property that's for the retail and vice versa. So to drill down a little bit further, oh, and by the way, as I keep typing here, that list, which you may or may not be able to see, it may go away, or it's going to get truncated down to a shorter list. Because again, we're constantly reading through that property list, and what you'll see is as I click now, it's a much more truncated. So I'm going to have to finish this just to get to the next phase. But the consumer provides their information, date of birth, social security number. Those things are all necessary. That's just something that we'll bring up on the paper form enrollment process. Something the law didn't consider very well at all, which is that consumers are gonna, be opting into a service that is a credit reporting service, and there's a paper form that's got a place for them to sign. Maybe put their name, maybe put their address. That's not enough information. So when that paper form comes, we're going to try to encourage them to go to the website, QR code, short code, all these things to hopefully encourage them to go log them, to sign themselves up. But if they do send the form in, as I mentioned, clients using our direct mail service, the form will actually come to us. We'll help, ingest that client that way and get them signed up. We'll have to we will actually have to communicate with them and get additional information to make that happen. So this is a non-affordable property that isn't even getting the rental reporting option made available. They just have the Pro and Pro Plus options like we discussed. But once again, this is a dynamic feature that is actually going to serve up properties based on the list that you give us to ensure that even if a client goes to the retail landing page, but they belong in affordable, or they get to the affordable landing page, but they're really on the retail side, that they get offered the appropriate products. So multiple safeguards in place so that you can get the information to the right people, the right products, and give them the opportunity to opt in, opt out as is required under the law. Now, once they've opted in, and I'm going to go back off the website for a minute to the to just the visuals. Once they've opted in, they're going to have an account with us. They're going to have a username and password. They're going to have a dashboard they can go into. They're going to get access to this dashboard, whether they have credit products from us or not. Even just the rental reporting, they'll still get access to the same dashboard. This is very valuable for a lot of different reasons. One of the reasons is if you're going to tell somebody that you're going to report their rent, you should be able to demonstrate that that's actually happening. If somebody gives you a paper form in your office and you go into the back of the software somewhere to turn on their rental reporting and there's no real visibility to the consumer, then that's going to create confusion, additional questions, follow up. How can you prove that you're doing what you say that you're going to do? Maybe you're collecting payment in the office as a part of the lease, and this is now a new line item that you have to allocate for. There's a lot of different things that need to happen in that environment. But with the Resident Link platform, the consumer is going directly to a website. They're expressly opting in. They're giving us payment details directly so it doesn't interrupt anything else that you're doing already. And after they get signed up, they're going to get access to this dashboard. And within the dashboard, it's actually going to show them their rent is actually being reported. So every month, we're going to not only show them that the rent was received, what the payment is, but that it actually was reported back to the Bureau. Over the years, as I mentioned, we have a relationship with Yardi, Experian Rent Bureau, and Experian. And actually, this will kind of lead into how ResidentLink does what it does, but we're leveraging that existing Yardi Experian Rent Bureau integration that already exists. Now, again, they got that fairly granular, at least over the previous version, all the way down to the unit level. But once again, the law is very specific. It needs to be one-to-one. If you have three people, three responsible parties on a lease, and only one wants to opt in, then you need to just opt in that one. Maybe another one wants to expressly opt out. Whatever it is, it has to be done to the individual level, not just at the unit. And ResidentLink, again, was designed as a direct-to-consumer product. So we're already signing up, enrolling people, having them opt in on a one-to-one basis. So again, we leverage that integration that Yardi and Experian Rent Bureau already have. We take those consumers that have opted in, and we take all that additional consumer information we have, and we move the trade line from one place to another. That other place, if you will, is within Experian, but it's Experian File 1, and that's where an actual trade line for a consumer exists. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish here, right? We're trying to give the consumer the opportunity to opt in and have their rental payment that's being made to you as the property manager, not just exist in your ledger, but to make it all the way to Experian File 1 as a trade line for the consumer. The law states at least one of the national consumer reporting agencies. Our primary is Experian, so we're going to keep talking about Experian because that's where we're reporting this rent to. Now, another thing that happens is if I am having my rent reported, I want to know, is there a benefit? Am I seeing anything differently? And although the consumer is not obligated in any way, shape, or form to buy any credit products from us whatsoever, not our ID theft protection, not our credit monitoring, nothing, they still have the opportunity to. And if I'm having my rent reported and I think this is going to improve my credit score, well, it'd be really nice if I had the opportunity to get my credit score. So we do have those services available to the consumer if they want them. They're not obligated to, not required to. It's voluntary, but they can get their single bureau, two bureau, tri-bureau credit report and score. They can order their scores separately, so they can get this information they need to not only see that the rent is being reported, but potentially to see the effect that that rental reporting is having on their credit report. So we think that's a really big value add to having the consumer have access to this dashboard to be able to see and monitor the payment. So with all that being said, we're obviously taking a pretty significant role in tracking and monitoring all of this information to you. So how do we actually do that? Well, I'm only going to show you one area inside of our dashboard, but from a reporting perspective, we have dozens of presets for reports, and we have basically a limitless ability to generate reports, provided that information exists in our data. So we're getting all kinds of information from the consumer on their way in. We're getting your property list from you. We're getting data to and from Experian via Experian Rent Bureau. So we have all these connection points and all this data being exchanged. And so we're very, to a very granular level, actually able to track all these different metrics, tell you who signed up, at which properties they signed up, how many people signed up. All of those things are able to be tracked. So this law doesn't really have a, it's kind of that quintessential trust but verify. So in other words, you know, you're saying you're doing this thing, but how do you prove that you're doing this thing? Well, unfortunately, that typically comes by way of audit. So somebody says, okay, you've told us you're doing it, now show us that you're doing it. Well, how better to show somebody than with some very clear, very granular statistics around that. On a monthly basis, all of our clients are actually getting a report that gives them a list of all the consumers that have opted into the service, which properties they opted in at, and even which product they selected, rental, reporting only, Rapid Pro or Rapid Pro Plus. So very robust backend, our ability to track and to provide these reports, know who's opted in, know who's opted out is a big part of the program. Now, historically, Resident Link has been exclusively offered online. We showed you all the different interaction points, but we did discuss as a part of this that there is an opportunity, there is a requirement rather to present this information directly to the tenant at lease signing, which may possibly end up with a paper form interaction. Now, there is a little bit of a catch or a caveat here, which is you've got to be using our direct mail solution, which again, I promise you I'll get to. But if you are in fact using our direct mail, we can actually help with the opt-in, opt-outs on the paper forms. You end up using our information as a third-party provider of services, and you'll get direct those forms to us. The self-addressed stamped envelopes will come to us. If somebody drops one off in your office, you can actually forward them to us, and we'll actually manage those opt-in, opt-outs as well. So that's that's an additional benefit where we've gone beyond, and that is a change to what we've done historically in response to this law. But we are well positioned to do it. We're going to be leveraging our existing customer support services to facilitate that part of the transaction. Now, I mentioned you'd have to be using our direct mail feature to get that. The reason why we have offered the direct mail is not because of the July 1 deadline, but rather because of the October 1 deadline. By October 1, you need to, so July 1 is all about new residents, getting people that are coming through at lease signing. October 1 is all about messaging the rest of the population. Actually, I want to pick up on something with regards to the population. So again, we categorize properties as retail and affordable. Without fail, our clients have all decided that if there is anything that potentially causes that property to have anything that would consider it to be affordable, one unit, one grant, anything like that would cause it to be deemed affordable under the law, then they're treating that entire property as an affordable property. So you may only have one subsidized unit or whatever the case may be in 300, but that whole property is now going to be deemed as affordable. That is a bit of a conservative approach. We could potentially explore more than that, but anytime something's new, I don't know about you, but we don't like to be the ones that are made an example of, and we certainly would rather take a conservative approach and stay on the safe side. And then if we can relax those later, so be it. So all of our clients have been considering that any property with any elements of it that might cause it to be considered affordable, the whole property is being considered affordable. And so we're talking about the population. So the population of the residents within that property. And again, it is the residents, not the units. So if you have 3 responsible parties in one unit, all 3 of those parties need to get the form, the messaging, all of these different things. So again, originally it's at lease signing. That's a July 1 deadline. Subsequently, it's a notification to the rest of that population. So that notification is pretty explicit in the actual law, in the Senate bill and in the law. It's got a handful of elements that must be in the notification. And also it even says, once again, that there needs to be a self-addressed stamped envelope as a part of it. So if you think about it, you've got a one-page form, you've got the envelope with the stamp to go out, you've got another envelope stuffed inside with another stamp to come back. The hard cost alone starts to add up. So Fraud Protection Network is actually able to aggregate all of our clients doing this and make it not only streamlined and easy, but also cost effective. Now, anytime I hear that somebody's doing something new, that gives me some cause for concern. Well, although we've not used direct mail for Resident Link, we are not new to doing direct mail. So we've talked exclusively about Resident Link as a product of Fraud Protection Network. But as a company, Fraud Protection Network doesn't just offer direct-to-consumer credit products. It also offers credit services to entities. More specifically, our clients are largely in the mortgage space. Well, in the mortgage space, there's an opportunity to do something called pre-screening. I'm not going to derail too much or go down too much of a tangent here, but the pre-screening is where you get access to a consumer's credit profile to make a decision about whether or not they're qualified or not qualified, and you do that without their consent. And the exchange is that you have to give them then a firm offer of credit. Most people on this call have likely received one of those, you're pre-qualified, you're pre-approved, etc., and you get this letter in the mail. So most of our clients on that side are sending their firm offers of credit via the mail. And as a result of that, we process hundreds of thousands of direct mail pieces already. So we're simply taking something we're already doing and we're bringing it over to a side of the business that was historically been exclusively online, but now needed this direct mail feature. So again, new Resident Link feature, not a new offering for Fraud Protection Network. The way that it's going to work, and we can talk a little bit more about pricing, and anybody that's interested in information, all the pricing is in what we send out to you. But in short, it's really easy to remember. The resident paid version of the amenity, the Resident Link product, if the resident is paying it, they're paying $1 per person per month. If the property manager is paying it, it's 50 cents. Why less for the property manager? Candidly, it just comes down to payment processing. If we're billing one client for dozens or hundreds or even thousands of consumers and they're making one payment, it's a lot more efficient for us to process that. If we're billing individual consumers on their debit cards or credit cards on a monthly basis, we have transaction fees, we have payment gateway fees, the cost is higher, therefore the product is offered at a bit of a higher price. So again, the actual product itself for the rental reporting only to the consumer is $1. Now, similarly, the price for the mail piece to that consumer or to any other individual in your population is also $1. As I mentioned, that includes the printing of a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, tri-folded, stuffed in an envelope, stamp on that envelope, another envelope inside that's also prepaid postage on the way back. So if you're to do it on your own, you'd probably be at that cost. Plus you get the additional benefit that we're processing all of those. All those are going to come back to our locked mailbox and be processed by our customer support team. And then we will work with the consumers to individually opt them in, opt them out, and also store that information in the image that's still on the screen in a way that can actually be tracked and provides you an audit trail. Now, in addition to that benefit, just the sending of the mail is something that we also have additional tracking tools and technology. As I mentioned, even though we haven't used direct mail historically for Resident Link, we have done mail for quite some time. Now, I've taken some screenshots again. I've truncated some things so that we didn't divulge any sensitive information. So I apologize, it's not the prettiest, but just to give you some idea of what our mail analytics look like, we can tell you when it was sent, to whom it was sent, whether or not it was delivered. About the only thing we really couldn't tell you is if they actually physically opened it and what their face looked like when they did. But all the way up to that point of delivery, we can track that mail piece all the way through. And like I said, we've been doing this for clients for years. You'll notice on the screen a lot of conventional VA, FHA. Obviously, that's because of our mortgage background, but it's all the same tools and resources that we're using to make this available to Resident Link property management companies as well. So that's, again, that's not necessarily what we're hyper focused on right now, because obviously the July 1 deadline is about new residents, but this is something that we need to keep, on the front burner, because this will be here before you know it. And if you've got to mail to lots of consumers fairly quickly, you're going to want to do it efficiently, as low cost as is possible, and also be able to track and monitor that should you be audited in the future so that you can prove that you did that. We in the Resident Link team will be able to help you with all of those things. That is pretty much it with regards to just the presentation of the material. Now is typically when we shift into the Q&A. I don't know if we've gotten better at this over the last week that we've been doing it. Not nearly as many questions as we typically have. So I'm going to start to answer those questions. I'm also going to just kind of continue to address things that have come up as other questions, or maybe even as they occur to me. And then, you know, we can use the balance of the time, actually look at some of the form sets and other things we'll be able to supply you with. But for those of you that, you know, have a busy day, as we all do, if you need to drop early, you can go ahead. You will get a follow-up email after the call. We are not going to be blanket sending out information to folks. Companies that want to work with us, let us know that you're interested. We'll send you the paperwork. Once the paperwork gets knocked out, we put together an entire package of forms, literature, and things like that for you to better be able to work with and to work on. So the forms together at this point, we can provide the supplemental language around how to incorporate the third-party provider of the information, and you should be able to supplement what you already have postulated to date. Again, I do want to just kind of circle back to the Yardi Experian Rent Bureau relationships. You need to be an Experian Rent Bureau, well, Experian proper by way of Experian Rent Bureau data furnisher. We're still leveraging all of that information. And that's something else that makes Resident Link unique. We are not interrupting the flow of payments or any other part of your overall process. So the payment, the resident can pay through your Yardi integration, through Demusa, through Paylease, through paper check, through money order. If you allow for it, they could drop off cash in your office. As long as that data ends up in your rental ledger, we'll be able to allow that consumer to opt in, opt out of rental reporting. Now, we do not blanket opt everybody in. Again, they expressly come in, say, yes, I want this product, opt in, pay for it. And then at that point going forward, we move the information that you're already capable of exchanging through the preset integrations into the Experian File 1 and create the trade line for the consumer. So that is, again, a little bit more about some of the granular details about how it actually works for us to grab this information and move it over. Some of the additional questions that come up with regards to the rental reporting itself is what happens if you have more than one person living in a unit? What happens if only a partial payment is made? With rental reporting, which again, that's fundamental to what we're all trying to accomplish here. We're trying to create the opportunity for individual consumers to expressly opt in or even potentially opt out of the rental reporting option. So we need to be able to perform this rental reporting to create these trade lines. Now, we've been on the forefront of this. We were working with Experian Rent Bureau before rental reporting was even really rolled out, when it was still conceptual in nature. So we've been there working with them. We're not only able, I think I mentioned this a little bit before, but just to kind of go back to it, we're even able to get data back from the Bureau to determine whether or not only did we match a consumer within the file, but that the information was actually reported to end up as a trade line. That may sound like a simple thing, but the Bureau sending any type of information back is a very challenging thing. So that's a big benefit. But with regards to how rental payments are treated, it is very binary. It is either paid or it is unpaid. They do not go into a late category. And I'm speaking specifically about Experian, by the way. Experian, and we agree with this, have always agreed with it. We are a consumer-centric platform. And that is not just a tagline, that's a part of our mission statement. And to be consumer-centric, our goal here is to build consumers' credit trade lines. Well, you don't build a positive credit profile by delivering negative information. So we are on-time positive reporting only, as is Experian. That's the only type of trade lines they promote. But how do you do that if in fact somebody goes negative or somebody stops paying, skips, whatever the case may be? Well, the way that we do it is we report to the Bureau every 30 days. It's actually on the 25th of the month. If information, non-positive information or no information is received on a particular consumer and the no information not received, we allow them to go into this limbo status for a 3-cycle or 90-day period. If during that period they get caught up and they end up going paid, again, it's only paid or not paid. If they go back to paid, they'll resume as if everything was fine. And they'll maintain that trade line. If they remain unpaid or go negative, instead of marking the trade line as negative, we'll actually remove the trade line altogether as if it didn't exist. we cannot give them credit for positive payments that they made historically when it was left in a negative state. That would be basically lying. But we don't want to penalize them either. So we just remove the trade line altogether. Now, that does not change your recourse with collections or anything else. It doesn't change that data may be available for future screening and different things like that. It's just quite simply the rental trade line that the consumer, in this case, paid for to have put onto their credit report. If they go negative, we'll actually remove the trade line. So again, we report every 30 days. It's very binary. It's either paid or unpaid. If it stays positive, they get it all the way through. Once they move out, the trade line closes, just like you would an auto loan. Even though you're no longer paying on that car, you still maintain credit for that. I mean, it'll fall off like everything else over, not really fall off actually. I mean, the negative is what falls off, but it'll move further back in time, as you move forward, but you'll maintain that trade line. Experian treats it a lot like an installment loan, where it's got a begin and end, a monthly and everything else. So we can use that information to, again, finish the trade line, and after they move out, maintain that data. If they go negative, then obviously we remove the trade line, and that's how we manage the positive only rental reporting. Excuse me. The other thing that we're kind of talking about at the beginning of this is if you have multiple roommates, what does that actually look like? Well, each one of the responsible parties is 100% responsible for the rent payment. And as a result, they get 100% credit for when that payment's made. Also, if the payment is not made in full, none of them get credit. So in other words, let's say you have two people, Paul and Sue, they decide that between themselves split the rent 50-50. It's $1,000 monthly rent payment. Each of them has to pay $500. Now, if Paul pays his $500 and Sue doesn't pay hers, they don't just evict half of the unit, right? The unit is unpaid. It's not paid. In that circumstance, they would not be getting credit for that payment. Now, Paul may have to make up her portion. Doesn't really matter. The whole rent needs to be paid though. But same way, if it is paid $1,000, even if it's 100% Paul and 0% Sue, then both of those, provided they opt in, will get the full credit because they would have been responsible had the payment not been made. So that responsible party, whomever those people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many your community would allow to occupy that unit and be a responsible party on the lease, each one of those folks is going to get credit should they opt in. And again, Resident Link is an individual level. Based product. So individuals expressly opt in, individuals expressly opt out. So if you have 4 people in a unit and only one wants it, only one opts in, only one gets it reported. If all 4 want it, great, they all get credit for it as well. But the mechanics of the rental reporting itself often does come up, so I figured I'd address that. From a timing perspective, it's going to be a real challenge to kind of stand something up overnight, have it available for tomorrow. I just want to be realistic with everybody that's on the call. That being said, there are things that you can or should already have somewhat in place with some of our information on your paper forms, giving them the opportunity to get to the website. We should be able to get this set up for you very quickly and start. And again, at this stage, it's only for the new move-ins. It's not for the messaging or for the entire rest of the population. That deadline comes by way of October. So not to minimize, obviously all of us want to be compliant by the deadline, but we do have to acknowledge that at this stage, there may be some delays, but know that our team will work with your team to try to get this set up as quickly as humanly possible to get you compliant with the law and get this process started so your residents can start to have their rent reported. Let's see. I haven't had too many questions come in that we haven't addressed in some other way. We're about 5 minutes over the time budgeted. Folks usually aren't upset about getting 5 minutes back in their day. So I think with that, unless something pops up here in the last 30 seconds of me talking, we'll go ahead and wrap this one a little bit earlier. I will go ahead and send this recording out as was requested. And please do reach out to us to request information if you're interested. We are doing a pretty rapid but standard onboarding. Historically, sometimes contracts bounce back and forth between different teams and, red lines or different due diligence. I mean, we're going to have to work with you to streamline that process so that we can get things done timely. We've done several things to make that easier. We have our due diligence folder managed online. If you let us know who the contact is, we can actually give them direct access so they can go pull all of our company information, our insurance information, do all their vetting very quickly that way, as opposed to trying to exchange a STIP list and go back and forth. We've got an onboarding form in advance of the contract that's a lot less information that allows us to, send you a pre-fill contract via DocuSign to escalate that process. So we're doing everything we can to streamline and make this faster, but it all starts with you requesting information. Again, send that request to me, Ryan, R-Y-A-N, at fraudprotectionnetwork.com. That's Ryan at fraudprotectionnetwork.com. And I'll get it out to the appropriate team members and ensure that you get communication, and we'll work together to get you onboarded as quickly as possible and create compliance with SB-1157 with the pending deadline. So with that, I hope it was good information. We'll circulate the link, and I hope that everybody has a good rest of your day, and look forward to working with each and every one of you as we roll out Resident Link. Thanks. Bye.